Hey guys, I'm Jay Randall. Welcome back to the channel where I discuss wisdom for the modern man. Today guys, got another video to react to. The title of the video, Radical Feminism Dehumanizes Men. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
I'm a licensed therapist, and I went to a mental health conference this year where every single white male who spoke made some sort of apologetic comment for being a white man. And a few years ago, I would not have even blinked at that. I probably would have seen it as a sign of self-awareness. But I think about it a lot differently now. In all of my college and graduate school courses that had a social justice emphasis, I was taught implicitly and explicitly that men's pain matters less than everyone else's. I was taught that when men suffer, it's self-inflicted. Their pain is a natural consequence of the patriarchy. Because men set up the system, they deserve the fallout for whatever happens. And that wasn't just framed as the factually correct way to understand the world, but also as the morally correct way. So if you questioned it, people didn't see that as you questioning an idea. It was seen as dismissing the pain of marginalized people. So no one ever questioned it. And when every professor that you admire, every textbook that you're assigned, and even the American Psychological Association reinforces that worldview, it doesn't feel like a belief. It feels like reality.
This is so true. I have to touch on this before she continues. I remember one of my college courses, I think it was psychology, and we were given an assignment where we had to write an essay on the given prompt. And I remember the prompt, I can't remember it exactly, but I know it had to do with something along the lines of feminism and the way certain belief systems affect society. But I was only allowed to write about the prompt in the affirmative, as if I believed in it. I couldn't disagree with the prompt. And me, man, I just wanted to pass the class. So I just, I wasn't going to go back and forth with the teacher about it and, push my view. I was like, what, I just want to pass this class. All right, whatever, BS. But I just thought it was funny how the prompt given gave you no room to disagree. It's like, here's how you need to view the world, and you don't have a choice. Write about how you agree and how you would add on to further this belief system and how you would implement it in your life and point out different things. Like I don't believe in any of this, but I had to write my prompt as if I did, and that I'll never forget that.
It's like being a fish in water. You don't even realize that you're swimming in it. But now I see how contaminated this water is and how this perspective is hurting boys and men, and I am not a happy fish. Culturally, we don't see male pain as something to empathize with.
Nope.
We see it as something to analyze, to correct, or to explain away. And perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in radical feminist and in leftist spaces.
Yep.
In those environments, male pain is not just dismissed. It's seen as a symptom of losing privilege, a kind of emotional temper tantrum. As the saying goes, to those accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. When you have that perspective in your head, it kind of gives you a get out of jail free card.
Exactly. Like that one clip on Facebook where, where the woman made a video where it says moment of silence for men's mental health. And she was dancing and to loud music and making a mockery of it. They do that because this is what they believe. They're trained very early to not view men as capable of feeling societal pressure, discrimination. Is it even possible for a man to experience wrongdoing? And if he did experience something that was, unjust or unfair, well, he probably deserved it because he's a man, so we don't have to really care about his plight too much. It's very dark.
Or ever feeling bad for anything that men experience. So when men suffer, we are safe to assume that it's not real pain. It's just discomfort about no longer being in charge. Empathy flows freely for every group, other than the people that we've decided to see as our oppressors, which is why at the therapy conference that I attended, every white man who took the stage felt the need to apologize. Not for anything that he did, but for who he was, for how he was born. Because in this worldview, identity is not just context, it's credibility. And if you are born into the wrong identity, then your pain will not be the priority. Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm a licensed
Very
therapist on a
true.
mission to expose the misandry in academia and in the mental health field, as well as to advocate for men being treated like humans. So before we dive in, I'm going to analyze a piece of content. We are going to be critical of the ideas and the thinking that it represents, because it's really bringing out my mama bear. But this is not me attacking one random guy. This random guy is not the problem. The problem is the framework. This is the framework that I used to live inside, one that is rampant in academia and treated as factual and moral truth. These narratives are compelling because the pain that they highlight is real. Historically, women faced very real systemic barriers, but that doesn't mean that men don't also face very real systemic disadvantages. It's so critical that we be willing to acknowledge both male and female pain, as well as the systemic disadvantages that either gender has faced and continues to face. Part of growth, intellectual and emotional, is being able to pause, to question, and to rethink. As Alvin Toffler once said, the illiterate of the future are not those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I used to see the world exactly the way that this person does. And during that time, I truly believed that my way of understanding the world was the most compassionate way to understand human suffering. But now I can see how narrow and incomplete that compassion really was. During my years as a radical feminist, the invisibility of male pain was invisible to me. Go figure. So today we're going to be responding to a response of a response. Very Gen Z of me. So this woman posted the original post. Me when it's time to take a moment of silence for men's mental health.
That's the video I'm talking about. That's the video. That's crazy that she actually is about to play it. Yeah, this is great.
Then we see this man's response.
600,000 men kill themselves every year due to mental health issues.
Let that sink in for a second. 600,000. And I'm sure that the man who posted that, like every man I know, has names behind that number. Friends and brothers and classmates and teammates and coworkers, people that they grew up with, people that they didn't even know were struggling. They died
Absolutely.
quietly. They died believing that the world would be better off without them.
This is very true. One of the guys that I worked with, he self-deleted like a couple months back, like 5 months ago, and everybody was shocked. I mean, me being in this space and understanding what men are going through, I wasn't shocked, but I was shocked that it was him, and he was very unfortunate. Very unfortunate that that happened. But yeah, let's keep going with the video.
So now we have a response to that response made by this college professor, an English professor to be exact. So he's in the humanities, the field that is supposed to teach us about the human experience and to guide us in understanding the human condition. So hopefully he'll be grateful that this man made the response in defense of all of the men that are deeply suffering and are dying.
The very first time that I went to therapy, I was 25 years old. I recently started my PhD, and I was just beginning to work on my dissertation, or rather, trying to work on my dissertation. I was completely overwhelmed. Had never taken on a project like this before. Didn't know what I was doing, how to even really get started. Like, my confidence was badly, badly shaken for like the first time in my life, and still. I only went to therapy at the urging of my then partner. And the second time that I went to therapy a few years later, it would again be at the urging of the woman that I was romantically involved with. And my experience here is hardly unique. Among men partnered with women, it is often the case that we only go to therapy at the urging of our partner. Monitoring our mental health is yet one more piece of the mental and emotional labor that we expect of our female partners in opposite sex relationships. So when the woman at the beginning of this video is poking fun at recognizing men's mental health, I think that it's with this perspective in mind. That being that men's mental health, that our mental health is always on their mind. Our mental health has always been made the responsibility of the women that birth us, that
Are you
raise
serious?
us, that we date, that we marry, that we raise. So while I absolutely appreciate why this would rub a men's mental health advocate the wrong way, I think that a little bit of understanding is in order. Because what a lot of women are hearing right now is that they are not recognizing, they are not doing work that they do all year round. And that, understandably, I think, they would really like to see us start taking the initiative on and do for ourselves. Because far too many men on here have turned Men's Mental Health Month into Women Aren't Doing Enough for Me Month, which is wild considering that most of us only learned about the idea of mental health from the women in our lives in the first place.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Bro. Wow. Holy crap. Man, that guy's lost. Such BS, bro. Like, this is crazy to me. It's absolutely insane to me that he can make that claim. Women don't give two craps about men's mental health. Have you ever gone into the comment section of like men's mental health videos? You will see some of the most evil comments from women. Like vile comments. Like, who cares? No one cares. Like, I don't even want to repeat the stuff that they say. I'm just going to keep it mild for YouTube. It's dark. Women don't care about men's mental health. Women don't care that men are lonely. Women don't care that men are broke. Women don't care. There might be a handful of women that maybe have a strong father figure, or maybe they're close with their brothers. So naturally, she'll have like that sense of care for men. But most modern women, bro, absolutely not. You think they're thinking about men year round and that's why they're fed up about Men's Mental Health Month? Absolutely not. The only time they care about men's mental health is, or the man going to therapy, is when they know the therapist is going to advocate on their behalf for the way they want to run the relationship, or the way they view the world, how they think, and they change the guy to fit her role, to fit the way she wants things to go. And this is why so many men, when they go to therapy, it feels like it's just like feminist propaganda. But let's keep going with the video, man. But holy crap, that guy was lost. That pissed me off, not gonna lie. And I don't get pissed off very often, but that pissed me off.
He never denies that men are suffering, but he reframes that suffering through the lens of how it impacts women. There's no compassion in this professor's response. There is no acknowledgement of the grief or of the heartbreak. There's no reckoning with the amount of pain that the man before is alluding to. Instead, he intellectualizes, he redirects, he abstracts. He prioritizes female emotional discomfort over male death, even in a moment meant for men's mental health. He insists that we zoom out and remember who the real victims are. It's not the 600,000 men who kill themselves every year, but the women who have to deal with it.
Wow.
And this is a humanities professor. And he hasn't gone rogue. This is just the culture of academia. Anyone deep enough in this thinking would have come to the same conclusion. And if this were a few years ago, I would have agreed with his take. It's not about him. It's about the ideology that shaped his response, the framework that teaches us how to interpret human suffering. Within this lens, men's pain will never be the priority. It will always come second or third or fourth to someone with the identity who we've already decided gets to be the true victim.
Exactly. And this is why so many men are advocating for each other, and the manosphere is growing because they find this one small space where people actually care about anything related to the male experience. And the media and all these political people are worried, and they're talking about male radicalization and, oh my gosh, the manosphere and the red pill. Yeah. Well, when you demonize men, when you tell them that they don't care about your education, we don't care about your health, we don't care about you having your kids, we don't care if you get destroyed in divorce, we don't care about anything related to you, and then the only place where men actually, their concerns get brought up is the manosphere. Yeah, you're going to have millions upon millions of men gravitating to the last holdout where men are actually cared about and appreciated. And if you've ever wondered why women can be so evil, could be so nasty in this day and age, it's because they're raised from day one to think exactly like this. From day one, the feminist propaganda gets in their brain, and you wonder why the girl you're with can be so cold towards you, could say such dismissive things. You wonder why you could be suffering emotionally, mentally, life can be tough for you. And you wonder why the woman in your life could just be so, like, not even notice that you're going through pain. Or if you are, it's like, it's minimalized in her eyes. Women in Western societies and in other parts of the world are literally raised to believe that men are incapable of suffering. And for the few who acknowledge that men are suffering, they just dismiss it by saying, well, you built the system. You'll hear this often. I do debates with feminists on TikTok from time to time, and anytime men's suffering or I bring up a men's issue that, men want to get fixed, they say, well, who built the system? Who put that system in place? Another tactic these feminists will use is when I bring up an issue that showcases male suffering, they'll say something along the lines of, well, look at all the horrible things men have done in this world. So, in other words, saying, oh, they deserve it. Men who had nothing to do with those atrocities, and we can all acknowledge atrocities were done, but men who had nothing to do with those atrocities, they feel as though, well, since you're a part of the male gender, you should somehow pay for the wrongdoings of men thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. And so your suffering doesn't matter. Bro, it's dark. Like at every step of the conversation, they will find a way to make men's suffering, men's pain, men's mental health irrelevant. And this is how women are trained to dehumanize men from the very beginning. This is why they can be so evil and cold at times. It's because they're taught that men either can't go through suffering, and if they can go through suffering, it's their fault or they deserve it. It's a dark world, man. It's really messed up.
No matter how sincere the grief, no matter how staggering the numbers, dismissal of that pain is always justified. What he's actually saying is, men, it's your fault that you're dying because you won't go to therapy. We're going to look at every other systemic issue as a systemic issue. But any failure of men is because the individual men aren't enough. He hears that number and he can see the grief in this man's face. And his contribution to the conversation is, well, this woman poking fun of mental health is justified because I only went to therapy when my girlfriend made me. As if that proves something. As if male suicide is just another example of how men fail women. There's no heartbreak or sadness or sorrow. Just the certainty that the real issue is not our indifference to male pain. It's that women are tired of having to deal with it. Apparently, even in death, men should be scolded for not asking for help in the way that we've determined is the correct way for them to ask for help.
Yeah, it's interesting because even on the Whatever podcast, when the question is often asked to the women, who's the primary victim of war? And it's so obvious that it's men. Like, men get literally offed, They get their limbs blown off. They come back completely deaf in one ear or in both ear, major injuries. I work with military guys, retired veterans, so I know what goes on. And these women have the audacity to say that it's women or that it's equal, that men aren't the primary victims of war.
Who's the primary victim of war, men or women?
I wouldn't know the statistics, but women and children don't ask to die. I mean, these men that are going to war, they have the assumption that they might die.
We know that the civilian deaths are going to be a mixture of men and women, boys and girls. Even by this logic, men still overwhelmingly take more casualties and have more deaths in war than women do.
Right, but aren't they victims because they chose to fight?
Well, it's not a choice. You got drafted, right?
Well, I would argue even among the volunteer force, if you end up going to war and dying, you're still a victim.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
You're still a victim if you die.
I don't disagree.
Primarily, though, I would just have to ask, what do you think men are fighting for?
I wouldn't know because I haven't been to war.
Yeah, I'm not asking you if you've been to war. I also have not been to war, but I can still speculate as to the motivations of people who go to war. They're protecting their homeland, right? Yeah, so what they're doing is they're going and dying for women and children.
Who are the primary victims of war?
I'll say women.
Why?
Okay.
How?
I mean, I guess the outcomes of going to war, like what happens with women and like cities that are invaded.
So let's assume military deaths are like nearly exclusively male, like 99.99% male.
If
All
you're cutting
war.
out civilian casualties to prove this point,
okay.
Yeah, well,
Then
but
men.
he can, especially since you're specifically looking at the United States. So, for instance, of the 292,000 members of the U.S. military who were killed by enemy fire, 16 of them total were female. 16.
Of the
From the
United States, yeah.
Total. 16 from the United States for all of World War II. All of it.
Even in something like war, where mostly men go to fight and lay down their lives, they still can't view them as a victim, even in that extreme scenario. So that if they can't even view war, like men going to war and being and view them as victims in that scenario, you think they're going to view anything else in society as men being victims or being victims of injustice? Absolutely not. It's absolutely astonishing.
This is the outcome of an ideology that sees the world in binaries, oppressor versus oppressed. So by that logic, the pain of the oppressed is always more valid and more important and more human than anything that the oppressor could ever feel. When we have the world broken up into abused and abusers, you're always going to care more about the abused than you do about the abusers. Here is a line from my actual graduate school textbook. Men cannot be oppressed as men. That is why male pain must be reframed as male guilt. Why male suicide becomes yet another burden that women are expected to carry. Why compassion for men must be justified, qualified, or withheld. Because within this framework, men weren't only born into privilege, they were born as the problem. If the point of this ideology that informed this professor's response is that it's supposed to benefit women, it doesn't. This ideology doesn't just misrepresent men, it actively builds resentment. It removes all aspects of what relationships are and teaches us to only see relationships as power struggles. It tells us not to see male pain as anything other than evidence of entitlement, as resistance, or as manipulation. This perspective doesn't just block compassion from men, but it robs women and men of understanding. It robs us of the ability to see our partners and our sons and our fathers, not as human beings with stories and with wounds and with hearts, but as symbols of power who should be held responsible for our suffering. I made this channel because I see what happens when society chooses to ignore male pain. I sit in my office on a monthly basis with men who are seriously considering ending their lives. These are not abusive or bad people. These are good and loving men who sincerely believe that they would improve the world by removing themselves from it. These men deserve compassion and they deserve to be cared about. If your feminism requires you to dismiss statistics of male suicide, if your ideology can only understand male pain as something that inconveniences women, then your framework is not liberation. It is cruelty wrapped in theory and fancy language. When we use this simple framework and we see men as our oppressors, we stop seeing them as humans. So if you are trained in the way that I was to dismiss male pain, I invite you to start unlearning that. Telling men that they need to get their act together before we care about them killing themselves is like pouring bleach on a plant and being like, I'm not going to stop until you bloom.
Wow.
It's backwards.
So
it's
true.
Cruel. And it completely ignores the reality of how growth actually happens. You cannot hate someone into changing. You must nurture them into it. So in a world where male pain is constantly minimized or explained away, where men are told that they deserve their suffering, choose to be this guy instead. Choosing to stand up for yourself and to stand up for men and boys in a culture that tells them that they're morally bankrupt just for being born a man, that is powerful and that is necessary. This is not about sides. This is about humanity. I did not make this video to dwell in sadness. I made it because male pain deserves to be seen. Optimism is a choice, and I do not believe that this story ends in despair. Because all around us, change is already happening. There are so many advocates and educators and everyday people who are speaking up and stepping out and creating spaces where boys and men are understood and where they're not required to apologize for existing. Male pain is real, but so is male strength. And when we meet that pain with care, not contempt, we don't just change individual lives, we work toward building a world where men and boys know that they matter. And that is a world worth fighting for. Thank you very much for watching. And we already know what the comments are going to say about me. So I'm going to get ahead of it now and say that you should pick me by liking and subscribing to my channel.
So pick me. Choose me.
Subscribe to
Me.
Now, please go take care of the boys and men in your life, and I will talk to you soon.
I'm not gonna lie, she did a phenomenal job with this video. She hit like straight to the heart of the issue, the problem. And I've been saying it for a very long time. Women are trained to dehumanize men. It's why they view men with such this dismissive, cold disposition. And I'm telling you, it's because from day one, they're taught that men are the oppressor. Why would you need to have any empathy, any understanding, any care for the oppressor? If I use the oppressor for money, that's fine. If I lie on the oppressor to get an upper hand, that's fine. If I completely take advantage of them in the court system, if I cheat on them, if I just, dismiss their pain and their suffering, it's fine because they're the oppressor. Even if this guy didn't do anything, his gender, hundreds of years ago did something horrible, so that's justification enough for me to treat this guy cruelly and not care about him or his pain or his mental health. I'm telling you, man, this whole concept of men are the oppressor, women are the oppressed is the foundation for dehumanizing men. And this system that feminists have never account for women being the oppressor. So female oppression to men goes completely unnoticed. Nobody calls it out except the manosphere, and that's why we're here. But apart from us, no one even notices female oppression because from their perspective, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Women can't oppress men. Women can't be evil to men. Women can't be, do unjust things. And if you defeat their argument and say, oh, actually they can, then they'll just go to, well, actually, he deserves it. If she's doing that to him, what did he do to deserve this? Men have done this in the past. I'm telling you, man, debating with these feminists on TikTok has really opened my eyes to see just how far feminism has removed female empathy, female understanding, female care for the male gender, the male experience, completely. Any suffering we go through is just brushed aside as irrelevant or our fault or something we deserve. Great video. Definitely subscribe to her channel. Guys, subscribe to her channel if you want more videos like that. I'm gonna check out her other videos, see if she has any other good content, but so far so good, man. I'm loving it. And if you guys got value from this video, please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this topic and how feminism is teaching women to dehumanize men. And until next time, guys, take it easy.